And now it's time for Power of Prophecy, continuing the legacy of Tex Mars, exposing evil, and promoting Jesus Christ as Savior. Here's your host, Jerry Barrett.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Power of Prophecy. I'm your host, Jerry Barrett. Honored to have you join me again this week. I have asked my buddy Pat McShay, investigative reporter extraordinaire, to come back on the show. Pat, welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be back, Jerry.
Now, I have had quite a bit of feedback on the 2 hours that we did on the Zionist-occupied government of D.C., and man, people are loving the program. I had a friend of mine say that it was probably the best program I've ever had and just loved it. Ordered a couple copies so he could pass them out to people. And, you know, that makes me happy because we're getting information out there, right?
Well, yeah.
Let me get this before Pat and I get into it. If you have not been to the website and you haven't looked at your newsletter, we are currently having a summer clearance sale. There is a link to the order form right there on the main page at powerofprophecy.com. Got a bunch of CDs and cassette tapes, some books, discounted as much as 60% off. So go take a look at those and get you some supplies, some reading material, some listening material, and have at it. But I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we are having a summer clearance sale. It will end September of 2025 at the end of the month, so get yours now. Okay, now, Pat and I are going to dive into information overload. This is volume number 20. Pat, it's amazing that we have so much. We don't even write this, Pat. People just do stupid stuff and just add fuel to the fire for us, don't they?
Yeah, it's great material, I'll tell you.
We don't have to look hard. That's the crazy thing. I want to start with this liberal judge in Kentucky who turns this guy out after 6 months in prison. They call it shock probation. He was sentenced to 14 years for robbing 22 people at ATM machines. What did he do when he got out? He kidnapped a mom and 2 of her children, stabbed her, and stole $20,000. What is going on with these liberal judges? Are they trying to put everyday Americans in harm's way?
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep these black felons out of prison. These guys never served even close to their full sentence. I think that guy was given 14 years and got out in 6 months?
Yeah.
So, you know, if that guy would have been in prison, how many times do you read stories like this? If he'd only served even half his sentence, you know, this crime wouldn't have happened. You see that all the time. They not only don't want these blacks going to prison, they don't even want the public to know that they're black. You know, it's just like that case in New York where the black guy walked down the street and into a building in New York carrying a long AR-15 rifle and shot the place up. And even though they had pictures of the guy, they said that he was possibly white when they were describing him.
Yes, CNN.
So
CNN said that.
Yeah, they don't even want us to know that they are black. So the dishonesty in the media is just too much.
You know, you bring that up. There's articles like this one, this guy that kidnapped the mom. I read the article. There was no picture of him. I had to Google his name to see, and I had a feeling because it wasn't in the article, but there was a shooting this past weekend here in Austin at a Target in the parking lot, and the article immediately has a picture of the guy that they arrested and charged with this heinous crime. his picture was in the paper because he's white. There have been Muslims that have gone on shooting sprees, suicide missions, whatever. Their pictures and the information, they have not disclosed who the perpetrator was. They don't want that information out there. And I also saw an article last week where this guy had done some heinous crime and they listed him as white, but he was an illegal alien from Mexico. So it's almost like they're skewing the data to make it look like more whites are doing these heinous crimes.
Yeah, they are skewing the data because they've been counting Hispanic felons as white for a long time to make the numbers on white criminals go up. So that's very intentional on their part. The FBI's even done that.
Well, they don't report all the data. They can't. You know, when they talk about mass shootings, Pat, they lump in all these other items, but nobody talks about the gang shootings going on in Chicago. Those aren't part of the police reports. They're categorized under something else.
Right.
And I read something a while back. And you think about all the gun crimes committed in this country. If you took out Washington, D.C., Baltimore, New York, Chicago, Detroit, and Los Angeles, our homicide rate would be less than most of the other countries in the world.
Just think if they took out all of the Hispanic and black gang crime.
Exactly.
You know, we wouldn't have, the murder rate would drop, the robberies would drop, carjackings would be non-existent if they just got rid of the black and Hispanic violent crime.
Yeah. And, you know, having grown up in a small town here in Texas, we were, maybe the whites had a higher demographic than the blacks and Hispanics, but man, everybody was, you know, small town, Pat, so everybody knew everybody. I never saw color growing up. I still don't try to prejudge because the Bible says God is no respecter of persons. So if you're a good person, pigmentation is nullified thanks to the Bible. But bad people, there are bad people everywhere. And the fact that our controlled media tries to doctor these numbers to paint a certain race as more violent than the others, they never talk about black on white crime. And that data is so far heavily weighed in the favor of black on white crime versus white on black that it's almost forbidden for controlled media to even point this out. And you talked about the FBI statistics. Those numbers are doctored because they're trying to hide things. I want to talk about this. Donald Trump has taken over the police department. He's federalized the police department in Washington, D.C. because of all the violent crime. All the Democrats are raising Cain because he is taking over this District of Columbia, which is his right. He has 30 days. He's federalized the National Guard, called them up to help fight crime. They say, well, we're down 24% in homicides from last year. But in controlled media, they don't talk about the fact that it's the fourth highest homicide rate per capita in the country. Oh, but it's down.
Yes.
They're doctoring numbers again.
Yeah, which is why you got to read people like Heather McDonald, who writes about crime and statistics. You know, they constantly lie about white crime because there is a war on white people. It goes back over 100 years to the Kalergi plan in Europe. White Europeans are being replaced. They don't like to talk about the replacement theory, and they like to call it a conspiracy theory. But it's very real, and anybody can look around today and see the racism directed at white people these days. You know, you've got these reverse discrimination suits that white people are filing in the last few years they're winning all of these cases because the racism is so blatant and in your face that they're winning all these cases. It's unsustainable for one thing. The court systems can't handle all these cases, and it is blatantly racist, and we cannot continue as a society going after 65% of the population. So whites still make up the vast majority of this country. Now we're being told that blacks built the country. And, you know, these things are just ridiculous. And anyone that has done any study of the history of America understands that it is white people who built this country. Now, blacks certainly contributed, but to say that they were behind building the country is just ludicrous.
Yeah, the spin, the propaganda, it's irritating because they're pushing this narrative that is a bold-faced lie. But look at the climate change hoax, Pat. I mean, they've got people that are so distraught about climate change that they can't function in a normal human atmosphere these days. They need a safe space. They got to have a safe room so they can go and meditate and think and calm down because they are so stressed about climate change. And I saw it was something was broadcast in England, and this guy said, I want to talk to you about climate change because you're very upset about this. Are you aware that Great Britain produces 2% of the emissions in this world? So all you people that are throwing soup and spray painting pieces of art in protest, that are gluing yourselves to streets, if Great Britain went net zero, what good would that do? Think about that, though. 2%. Where's the vast majority of the pollution coming from? India, China, Southeast Asia. It's not coming from America. It's not coming from Great Britain. It's coming from third world countries that are trying to become first world civilizations.
Yeah, this mass hysteria is just mass idiocy. They know that the numbers they've been using for decades were disproven. They were debunked 30 years ago, and 1,500, actually 1,900 recently, scientists from around the world just signed another statement saying that this whole global warming crisis is nothing but a hoax. So you've got 1,900 scientists that are debunking this nonsense. And let's face it, the only people that are going along with this global warming hoax are the people that are making money off of the global warming hoax. Anyone that's not making money off of it is going to tell you the truth. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you notice that no one's really complaining a whole lot about global warming and Donald Trump doing away with billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, expenditures for the global warming hoax. And no one's really saying much about it. No one's complaining a whole lot. And these Europeans, Trump he goes over there and tells them they're all crazy, and they all look at each other and they don't know what to say because they know he's right.
Yeah, the only people funded for climate change as being a man-made problem are the researchers and the so-called climate specialists who are pushing this hoax. That's it.
Yeah, and the thing that really angers me is when these guys start blaming hurricanes and tornadoes. They blame global warming. When all they need to do is look at history 100 years ago, where we had just as many tornadoes and just as many hurricanes and just as many wildfires, and not only that, but they find after these wildfires, most of these were caused by arsonists. And did you see what they're doing now in the name of climate change in Nova Scotia? An entire province filled with beautiful forests and lakes They're telling people now you can't go into the woods. You can't hike anymore in the woods in Nova Scotia. Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, it's a $25,000 fine if you get a ticket for hiking in the woods now in the province of Nova Scotia. Look that up.
That is crazy. You know what's almost as crazy as that, Pat? The fact that people still believe we landed on the moon.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a report.
Well, yeah.
You posted it on Twitter, and I watched the video. It is, it is laughable that NASA is basically and their astronauts are basically admitting, well, we really never did go to the moon.
Yeah, they're saying that we cannot go through the Van Allen radiation belt because it would likely kill the astronauts, and the radiation would have destroyed all the film. So I don't know how they took all those thousands of pictures. The radiation would have destroyed pretty much everything.
It would have fried the electronics. It would have fried anything to do with photography or film. It would have fried the astronauts, mainly because instead of using lead, and this is finally coming out, the rocket was not lined with lead because it was too heavy. Even if it was a thin sheet, it would have been too heavy for the rocket boosters to get this rocket off the ground. There is no feasible, according to physics, there is no possible way that this rocket would have been lined with lead. It was only lined with aluminum. Well, I've seen aluminum melt.
Well, I've always said, if you look at that module, it looks like it was made of cardboard, paper mache, and duct tape. It sure doesn't look like it would make it with 3 astronauts through the radiation belt and keep them safe.
Don't forget the tinfoil. I saw tinfoil on there.
Yeah. I think that was aluminum foil, not tinfoil.
Okay, aluminum foil. Yes, my bad. Oh, my goodness. And now there's astronauts saying that, well, hopefully soon we'll be able to get out of lower Earth orbit and be able to, and I'm going, what? Wait a minute. How did we get to the moon then?
Yeah, lower Earth ends, 24 miles up or something?
I've never been a Trekkie or any of that space adventure kind of person, but it's just to hear astronauts say, well, we don't have the technology yet. Okay, what did they do in the late 60s?
Yeah.
The truth is, our rocket research was for intercontinental ballistic missiles. We were looking to be able to deliver nukes to Moscow. That's all it was. It was an arms race with Russia to develop rockets that would propel a nuclear bomb to our enemies. So the fact that people have bought that we went to the moon, and I've read and I've seen a number of documentaries on this, Pat. People have alleged that, I think it was Stanley Kubrick that did 2001 A Space Odyssey. They used a sound set for filming this interaction on the moon.
Right.
And if you think back as a kid, Pat, I don't know about you, but I was sitting in front of the TV and I was totally engrossed in watching our astronauts. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Oh yeah, everybody was, weren't they?
I thought so. I mean, I was parked in front of the TV watching this because I thought this was amazing. But as you get older and you start using actual deductive reasoning, Pat, where was this camera located that was filming the rocket landing, that was filming Neil Armstrong take the first steps on the moon?
Yeah. Well, another strange thing is the guy that was in charge of NASA, the guy that promised JFK in 1962 or 3 that he guaranteed that he'd get us to the moon, he quit the Apollo program about 6 months or so before we finally went to the moon. Now, why would that guy quit right before they finally made it to the moon. It makes no sense for him to have quit. And not only that, but not long before they supposedly went to the moon, they did not have a rocket engine that they could count on. They had all kinds of problems with the engines that all of a sudden those problems with the rocket engines cleared themselves up in a very short time for us to make it to the moon. Not only that, but another couple of famous astronauts quit the Apollo program shortly before they went to the moon too. But the biggest thing I think is, if you watch the interviews with the 3 astronauts after they came back from the moon, if you look at those guys, they look like their dog just died. They don't look happy at all. They look like 3 guys who are lying about just getting back from the moon. Anyone can pull the interviews up, pull those interviews up and watch those. And you tell me if those astronauts look like they were happy to go to the moon. I think just their body language would tell you that these guys were lying through their teeth.
Man, I tell you what, if that was my life's goal, I would be bouncing off the walls with excitement, having had the opportunity to be one of the first people to ever land on the moon. You would not have been able to contain my excitement.
Neil Armstrong can barely look at the reporters during the interview. You got to watch it if you haven't seen it. But, yeah, these guys don't look like they just got back from the moon.
And if you remember, they had film of the spacecraft crashing into the ocean, or landing in the ocean. And then they go take a boat and they rescue them. What did they do with the astronauts when they got back? They went in quarantine. They went in isolation for like a week or 2. Was that to program them to all have the same response when they were interviewed? You have to ask that question today, knowing that we have never been to the moon.
Right.
That's just something that has always perplexed me. And, believing it as a kid is not the same as learning deductive reasoning. I even went through some NASA thing I think it was in Newport News, Virginia, when I was 12, 13 years old. My dad was at Langley for NCO Academy for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So Mom took us out of school and took us to Virginia. We stayed in a Motel 6 on the Chesapeake Bay, Pat. We were high rollers, brother. But my brother and I, with my mom, while Dad was at the academy, we went all over that area looking at history. And we actually went to some NASA facility there. I think it was Newport News, but I could be wrong. I was a teenager. I wouldn't have known. But they had the lunar landing rocket there, or the ship, and they had a space rock. Now, 48 years later, I'm thinking, what rock was that? Where did they get that from? Did they get it from a crater in the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Did they pull
you know the story. You know the story about one of the world leaders that they gave a moon rock to. They had it tested, and they proved that it was not a moon rock. Have you heard that story?
No, that's hilarious, though. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Oh, my. The whole NASA thing, there's no feasible way that you can, knowing what you know now, you can accept the fact that we actually went to the moon. And I'm not even a space guy, Pat. I just have read numerous articles and seen documentaries where people that are space junkies actually put deductive reasoning together and said there is no way. I had never heard of the Van Allen radiation belt until I saw a documentary that was entitled A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. Well, that got me thinking, so I started looking at the Van Allen radiation belt. And there was a report from Space Shuttle pilot. When they were in orbit, he said we got close enough to the Van Allen radiation belt that if you closed your eyes, you could see white dots across your vision. Okay? Well, this is the Space Shuttle. This is 1980, 1990, early 2000 technology. We should know enough to line these craft with lead so you don't get radiation poisoning. The suit should be lined with lead so that when they do a spacewalk, they don't get radiation poisoning. But you don't hear about the Van Allen radiation belt unless you do some digging. And people,
right.
You mentioned it earlier. It's an idiocracy. We have been so spun, so propagandized that we have taken everything that the controlled media has thrown out there at us as truth without doing our own digging. And we've talked about this before many times, Pat. The biggest danger to controlled media is alternative media and the internet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jerry, here's that story. The moon rock that was presented to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, supposedly brought back from the moon, was found to be a piece of petrified wood. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. How many people know that?
Didn't Armstrong assault a reporter that asked him if he really did go to the moon?
I think that was Buzz Aldrin. He punched the guy that made the movie, the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon.
Okay.
He was going around with a Bible trying to get the astronauts to swear they went to the moon on the Bible. And, of course, none of them would do it. He had done it to Buzz Aldrin a few times, and he ended up punching him.
Therein lies the answer to your question. If you have to resort to a violent reply, I mean, it's just same thing with the news. If you know who you cannot talk about, you know who is controlling you.
Right. And if you went to the moon and someone said, put your hand on the Bible and swear you went to the moon, wouldn't you do it?
I would be so giddy to disprove all of the naysayers. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I would have done it. So why did he not do it? Why did Neil Armstrong not do it? He's done it to several of those guys, and none of them will do it. So I don't know. Something's wrong.
Something is fishy in Denmark, as they say. And this recent report, it's on Twitter. You can find it if you do some digging. If you go to @J_McShay, go to Pat's Twitter page. You will see he has retweeted this article with a comment, and you can actually watch this video with these astronauts saying, well, eventually we're going to get through the lower Earth atmosphere and we'll be able to go into outer space and blah, blah, blah. If they've already done it, then we wouldn't have to refigure out how to get there again. So
not only that, real quick, most people probably don't know that all of that information, all the videos, everything was erased by NASA. So they can't go back and say, oh, here, look at this, because they erased it all. Now, why in the world would they do that? And they could claim it was an accident, but that's just idiocy, isn't it?
Yes, sir. That's what it is. Well, Pat, we have flown through 30 minutes, buddy. We got to take a brief pause. My guest today is Pat McShay. You're listening to Power of Prophecy. We're going to take a brief pause, and when we come back, we're going to dive right back in. Stay with us, won't you? We'll be right back. Hello, friends. Jerry Barrett back with you again. I want to tell you about an outstanding DVD documentary that Tex Mars produced a number of years ago entitled The Eagle Has Landed. In this documentary, you will find 2 hours of powerful documentation, investigative film footage, and persuasive scenes revealing the Illuminati magic, alchemy, and Masonic ritual of NASA's U.S. space program. I believe you'll be shocked to realize how so many minds are being programmed through the grand theater of master hypnotists and illuminist mind controllers. Find out why the badges, patches, symbols, and logos of the astronauts and the space missions and craft are based on the names of signs of the zodiac as well as ancient mythological creatures, heroes, gods, and goddesses. Watch in amazement as 6 consecutive secret Masonic handshakes are exchanged by high-level ground control officials in Houston following one mission success. See revealed how NASA has conducted ESP and parapsychology experiments such as telepathic communications from astronauts to psychics on Earth. Why did the space agency launch Apollo 13 at exactly 13:13 military time? Note, 3 supernatural 13s equals triple witching. Hear of the eerie occult circumstances of the Challenger space shuttle disaster and allegations of foul play in the deaths of astronauts. Discover why a number of engineers and investigators now seriously doubt whether man ever landed on the moon. Was the Apollo 11 moon landing a gigantic hoax? Has NASA, in its official literature, admitted that the Apollo 13 emblem represents Apollo, the sun god? What role does Hinduism play in the space program? Why does the Holy Bible say that one of the names of Satan is Apollyon? You will find all of this information in this powerful 2-hour documentary by Tex Mars. We're only asking $25. Please add $6 shipping and handling. That will make your total $31. To order your copy of The Eagle Has Landed, you can phone us toll-free in the United States and Canada at 1-800-234-9673. Again, that's 1-800-234-9673. If you care to phone our regular line, that number is 512-263-9780. We're in the office Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. We accept Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. You can use those same charge cards at our secure shopping cart at powerofprophecy.com, powerofprophecy.com. There's an ad for The Eagle Has Landed right there on the main page. Click on it, put in your name, address, charge card, shipping method, hit submit, we'll get it and get it coming to you. If you care to send in a check, money order, or cash, please make your check or money order payable to Power of Prophecy, and you can mail it to us here at 4819 R.O. Drive, Suite 102, Spicewood, Texas, and our zip code is 78669. $31 postpaid for your copy of The Eagle Has Landed. If you don't have a copy already, you need to get yours today. Okay, and now let's return to our regular program. My guest today is Pat McShay. Pat, welcome back.
Hey, great to be here, Gary.
Now, you posted an article. I missed this somehow, but, my week has been kind of swamped. My mom's in the hospital again, and a lot of things going on. But an Al Jazeera reporter was assassinated by the Israelis. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, he was with 5 other reporters, and they bombed the room that they were in and killed all 5 of them, claiming that one of them was a Hamas associate. I don't know what that means. I think that they label somebody in every group they blow up as being Hamas. But let's not forget, they have killed over 200 photographers and reporters in Gaza just since the October 7th incident. So their snipers are targeting reporters that have clearly marked on their chest that they're media. They wear media vests, and they're killing them anyway. They're blowing them up. So reporters are not safe. And the reason they're not safe is Israel doesn't want anyone reporting exactly what's going on over there. And some video did come out from these helicopters that are parachuting aid packages into Gaza. And some of the video from those helicopters is just unbelievable. Shows just Gaza is just being completely leveled. Imagine almost 2 million people in that city. I live in about the 15th largest city in America, and there's about 900,000 people. Gaza has twice more than double the amount of people that live in the city I live in. I can't even imagine a city of close to 2 million people being starved to death and just being carpet bombed. And not only that, but after the people are driven from their homes and into these camps where they live in tents, they're bombing the tent cities that they are moved into. So anyone that says that this is not a genocide is just a liar. And anyone, Christian or otherwise, that would support that should have their head examined. I think it's really disgusting.
It is so sad when you consider what happened with the media in America. They decided that, I'm talking about the Jews, if we control the media, we control the narrative. What better way to control the narrative than to destroy a tent that has 5 journalists from Al Jazeera? Let's bomb this and we'll get rid of the witnesses of what's going on. Because the truth is coming out, kind of like NASA we talked about already. The truth always comes out. And what was it, John Kennedy from Louisiana said, I think it was when he was deposing Kash Patel before they confirmed him as head of the FBI. He said, it seems to me that they're running out of conspiracy theories because the truth always comes out. Everybody said, take the jab, take the jab, take the jab. Now the truth is coming out that they knew beforehand that this thing was going to kill people with myocarditis, pericarditis. It was going to disrupt the reproductive systems on females. They were going to kill babies. All of this was part of the depopulation plan. That's the same concept of controlling the narrative in Gaza. And I saw Netanyahu wants to go in. I thought there was a ceasefire, Pat, but Netanyahu wants to go in and get rid of everybody in Gaza and then let somebody else run it?
Well, yeah, not only that, but while everyone is looking at Gaza, no one's paying attention to what's been going on in the West Bank. And they're murdering people in the West Bank every day. They're driving these people from their homes every day. They're pushing people into these refugee camps every day. And a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump and his horrible Middle East policy, because Trump came in and he dropped all the sanctions that had been put in place against these Israeli settlers who are given tens of thousands of dollars to move into these settlements. And then the Israeli army helps them move these people out of the homes that they've lived in. These people have lived in these homes, their families, for dozens of years, decades. They're throwing these people out of their homes, and then they're using the Israeli army to keep the people from coming back. So this is all on Trump right now. He has ownership of Gaza. He has ownership of the West Bank. And let's not forget, Israel is still bombing in Syria and Lebanon on a weekly basis. He's bombing Christian cities. He's bombing Christian churches. They bombed the Catholic Church, one of the last Catholic churches left in Gaza. So the Israelis hate Christians just as much as they hate these Muslims. People don't get it twisted. The Jews in Israel hate Christians. Get that through your head.
Yeah. You know, it's wearing thin with some of their allies too. I saw Germany, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, they're getting fed up with what's going on with the land theft there in Gaza.
Yeah, they all just came out and said, no more. We do not support this. And these are longtime allies. I mean, let's face it, the UK, you know, they're one of the closest allies. Germany, Italy, Australia, New Zealand. These foreign ministers that issued this statement condemning Israel's plan to further escalate this war in Gaza and take control of Gaza City, this is huge news. This is something you never would have seen happen a few years ago. So the worm has turned, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, they're not going to get a lot of these countries back. And they're losing America as much as these corrupt politicians in America that are blackmailed by Israel. They're not going to be able to save Israel from American intolerance, you know, of their continued genocide. This ethnic cleansing has got to stop.
Yep. Ah, man. Do you know who Julian Assange is?
Oh, absolutely. Julian Assange won over 200 awards for journalism before he was thrown in prison. Donald Trump should have pardoned him and brought him to America because Julian Assange, and I wrote about this 6 or 7 years ago, Julian Assange is who Seth Rich gave all that information to. He is the one that gave Julian Assange the information about Hillary Clinton. Trump could have had that whole thing wrapped up, and the reason that it didn't happen could have been because Bill Barr and Rod Rosenstein and a whole coterie of traitors were in charge of our Justice Department. But, you know, it's just come out here recently that Bill Barr has been working against Trump and his agenda since he first was appointed as Trump's attorney general. And after Trump left office, Bill Barr was still working against Trump. And it's come out just recently, a whistleblower just came forward with evidence that Bill Barr was working with Fani Willis in Georgia to put together the RICO case against Trump. And it sounds like the RICO case was Bill Barr's idea. So when is the Justice Department going to do something about that? And when is Fox News and MSNBC and some of these mainstream media people going to start reporting on this huge blockbuster story? It's a major story.
It would be, except a couple things. Number one, Bill Barr is tied in with Epstein, right? So he's got a family connection with Epstein. Number two, Fannie Willis is a black Democrat DA down in Georgia. She's part of the chosen, for lack of a better word, of people to further the loony left agenda. Number three, everybody is against Trump, and they're not going to do anything to derail these attacks against Trump. And I don't think Trump is Mr. Innocent. I just think that there are so many people that will protect and fail to report the truth on the collusion between Bill Barr and Fannie that there's no way this is going to come out anytime soon. The whistleblower coming out now is a shocker, but it's going to die on the vine unless places like alternative media continue to investigate and report on this, and people actually want to know the truth. Therein lies the problem. People have to want to know the truth. They don't want to, they are fed up with the lies and the propaganda they get from controlled media. And it's going to take that push to get it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Armstrong Williams?
Yes.
Well, this whistleblower worked for Armstrong Williams, and she said that Bill Barr was working with Armstrong Williams, and they were running an illegal immigration visa fraud scheme for elites and billionaires. And she said that Bill Barr and Armstrong Williams were also involved in blocking Trump's political comeback and working with Fannie Willis and these Fulton County prosecutors in bringing the RICO case against 9 other people, including, former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark lost his law license in this RICO farce. This is a huge story. If nothing on this ever comes out, it'll be shocking.
Right. When you hear Bill Barr say that, and I've heard the audio, somebody posted it on Twitter, Bill Barr saying, if we use RICO, because it's almost impossible to defend against RICO charges.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You talk about traitorous?
People can go to thegatewaypundit.com, and they've got a story up about that. It was originally a Project Veritas undercover story. So, Armstrong Williams, he sounds like a real creep. I don't know much about him, but these guys are all traitors.
Yes.
They are all traitors. And I knew Bill Barr was a traitor a long time ago. We did a whole hour on it before.
Yes, we did. Now, speaking of traitors, Pencil Neck, Adam Schiff, he has found himself, I know Biden pardoned him on his last full day in office, well, allegedly. The auto pen pardoned him and whoever ran it, but Adam Schiff got pardoned for the J6 stuff, but he's in a whole mess of trouble now, isn't he?
Yeah, they got him on mortgage fraud going back 2 decades. Same thing with Kiss James up in New York. She's got 2 decades of documented mortgage fraud. And these are felony charges. These are charges that could put them in prison for up to 15 or 20 years. So these are nothing to sneeze at. But not only that, another whistleblower just came forward. This guy's a Democrat, and he worked for the intelligence agencies. I can't remember which one, but he came forward and said that Adam Schiff, in his zeal to prosecute Donald Trump and impeach him, he released or leaked classified documents just to get Trump in trouble. So here you've got a Democrat intelligence agent ready to testify against Schiff in that case. And then, of course, you've got the January 6th lies and the Russiagate lies, and he's just lied about everything.
Right. Pencil neck.
It's just hilarious.
It would make me smile if he ever got indicted, convicted, and thrown in the hoosgow for the lies, the deceit, the treason that he has performed as an acting member of our federal government. That the only way we clean up D.C. is to prosecute these people. But they're in thick as thieves. They don't turn on each other. The oddballs like AOC and Jayapal and Jazzy Crockett, they're the outliers, but those that have been in Congress for multiple terms, they're buddy-buddy with somebody across the aisle. They're not going to turn on each other because they're all getting rich. They're just working the system to keep power and to stay rich. And it's aggravating to no end. Now I want to get with this. Candace Owens, we were talking during the break about Candace Owens, the work that she's doing, and she's seen the light on Israel and everything going on there, but she's also come out about Macron, the Prime Minister of France, being married to a transgender. But something, I'm going to use the word, Pat, and it means strange. Something queer happened when Macron and his beard showed up at the White House recently, didn't it?
Yeah, this just happened a few weeks ago. Candace Owens on her podcast said that she got a phone call from the White House one afternoon, and it was a presidential staffer. And they said, I'm with the White House, and the president would appreciate it if you would stop talking about President Macron's wife. And she said, what? You're kidding. He said, no. She said, the president asked you to call me? And he said, well, let's just say that the president would appreciate it if you'd stop it. She said, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. She hung up, and she said about, I don't know how long, 20 minutes, half hour later, she got another call from the White House. And it was Donald Trump on the phone. And he said, Candace, it's Donald Trump. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe he's calling me. And he asked her, he said, the Macrons are here at the White House. And she said, we are in negotiations over Ukraine. And he is telling me that unless you stop talking about his wife, that he would not be amenable to doing anything that will help the situation that we're in. And so he said, would you mind not talking about his wife until, for the next few days until we work this out? And she said, I just couldn't believe I'm on the phone talking to the president. I'm in my basement getting ready for my afternoon podcast, and the president is on the phone asking me to stop talking about the first lady of France and her penis, And so she told him, I won't talk about it, for the next few days, count on me. I'll help you out if I can. So she said it definitely happened. And she said, I hope they worked out whatever they got worked out. But yeah, he called her at her house and asked her to stop talking about it. So how crazy is that?
That is nuts. Absolutely nuts that Donald Trump would call her house and beg her not to upset Macron's beard any more than she already has. I mean,
it's really insane.
It seems to me, I think I read somewhere that Macron had hired a special or a private investigator to dig into Candace Owens and try to find dirt on her. That's just...
Yeah, she talked about that too, yeah.
That's just flabbergasted me.
Yeah, she said, there's nothing that he could find that would embarrass her or anything. She said she just couldn't believe the fact that he hired this international firm to investigate her.
If you don't have any secrets, then why would you? If she's not hitting the target, why would you do this?
Well, before Candace Owens started her investigation, there was a French investigative journalist that did most of the legwork on this information that she did her podcast on. And she gives him all the credit that, for the work that he did. But there is software that he uses to put over pictures that can tell if, the picture of a youth is the same person when they're older. And she's done a bunch of work with this software on pictures of a young boy that she claims is the adult Mrs. McCrone. And she said it came back in the 90 percentile, which she said, almost always indicates that it's accurate and that they are the same person. And she said that software gave her like a 95% chance that Emmanuel Macron's wife was this little boy in the picture. But she said that she still believes that Emmanuel Macron's wife is a male born transgender. So how it's all going to come, I don't know if she's going to do a blood test. I don't know how they're going to finally resolve it, because the Macrones have recently filed another lawsuit against her. So yeah. She intends to fight it.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Just, it's not a shocker when you consider how many perverts have occupied the throne at the White House, in England, all the pedophiles they've had there, in France, in Ukraine, China. I know Mao Zedong, his thing was to deflower 10-year-old virgins. And parents thought that this gave them a blessing because they let their 10-year-old girl be deflowered by the great one, Mao Zedong. So they fed into this pedophilia. So the kingmakers know that if I've got some kind of pervert, whether it's a pedophile or a tranny or something, they know that they can control them and they can do their bidding and they can stay in the background. I mean, look at what Obama did. We know, in my heart, I know that Michael is married to Barack, that Barack is a flaming homosexual. But, it just seems to be the case where people get in power, they're perverts. And I'm not going to exclude Donald Trump because of things that he said and things that he's done in his past. But, it's just crazy, Pat. And what's crazy is we have flown through an hour, man. I want to thank you for coming on and being a guest on Power of Prophecy again.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jerry. Thanks.
Okay, my friends, that's going to take care of this week's program. My guest today has been Pat McShay. We want to thank you for tuning in and giving us an hour of your time. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, I pray you will tune in again next week at this same time. Tune in and discover the power of prophecy.